everyone, and welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today we're going to be exploring this super interesting idea of eliminating prejudice.
Yes.
And we'll be looking at it through the lens of the teachings of the Baha'i Faith.
Right.
For anyone who might not be familiar, the Baha'i Faith is a religion that really emphasizes the oneness of humanity.
That's right.
So you've sent over some fascinating writings, and I'm really excited to kind of dig into these with you.
Yeah, these are some really great sources for understanding this topic.
So right off the bat, there was one quote that really stood out to me, and it's from Baha'u'llah, who is the founder of the Baha'i Faith.
Okay.
And he says, "The earth is but one country, and mankind its citizens."
Wow.
I mean, how powerful is that? It's such a simple statement, but it really makes you rethink your whole perspective on the world.
Absolutely. It really is a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
When you think about it that way, it kind of diminishes the importance that we place on like national borders and cultural differences. It's like it pushes us to see how interconnected we all really are.
Totally. It's like instead of picturing the world as all these separate houses, it's more like one giant neighborhood where we're all connected.
Exactly.
And it really gets you thinking like, okay, if we're all citizens of this one global country, then how does that change how I see my responsibility toward others?
It definitely does.
You know, suddenly things like poverty or climate change aren't just issues happening over there.
Right.
They're directly impacting my fellow citizens.
It is a call to action, definitely, but I think it also goes even deeper than that.
Okay.
It's about acknowledging that every single person has inherent worth, no matter where they come from or what they believe.
I love that. And, you know, it really ties in beautifully with the next passage that I wanted to discuss.
Okay.
It's from Abdu'l-Baha, who's another really central figure in the Baha'i Faith. And he uses this garden analogy that I found so striking.
I know, it's a great one.
He says, and I quote, "Consider the flowers of a garden, though differing in kind, color, form, and shape, yet inasmuch as they are refreshed by the waters of one spring, revived by the breath of one wind, invigorated by the rays of one sun, this diversity increaseth their charm and addeth unto their beauty."
Beautiful.
It is just such a vivid image, you know? And I think we all can agree that a garden that has all kinds of different flowers is just so much more beautiful than one that's just all the same.
Absolutely.
But how do we take that idea and apply it to human society? Because it feels like sometimes we're more focused on our differences than our shared humanity.
Right, and I think that's the real challenge here. The analogy reminds us that our diversity is actually a strength, not a weakness.
Okay.
Like, think about a team working on a project.
Yeah.
If everyone has different perspectives and skills, the solutions they come up with are going to be way more creative and effective.
That makes sense.
And the same principle applies to society as a whole.
Yeah, like imagine a world where everyone was exactly the same.
Exactly.
How boring would that be?
It would be incredibly boring. There would be no creativity.
No innovation.
Yeah, exactly.
But then why is there so much prejudice in the world?
Right.
If diversity is such an amazing thing, why do we see so much fear and animosity toward people who are different from us?
Well, the Baha'i writings talk about this, and they emphasize that prejudice isn't something we're born with.
Okay.
It's something that we learn.
Oh, wow.
We're not born hating people who are different from us. It's something we pick up from our environment, our upbringing, societal influences.
So it's like we're almost programmed to see differences first and then commonality second.
Exactly, like a default setting we need to override.
Yes. And if prejudice is learned, that means we can unlearn it too, right?
Absolutely. That's where education comes in. And I don't just mean learning facts, but like cultivating virtues, empathy, and a deeper understanding of what it means to be human.
So it's about expanding our worldview.
Yes.
And realizing that our differences are what make us interesting, not threatening. It's like we need to reprogram ourselves to celebrate those differences instead of fearing them. Because so often prejudice just comes from a fear of the unknown, right? We're afraid of what we don't understand.
Absolutely. And the best way to combat that fear is through knowledge.
Right.
Understanding and just having meaningful interactions with people from diverse backgrounds.
I love that. And Abdu'l-Baha, he doesn't sugarcoat it.
No, he doesn't.
He talks about the consequences of not addressing prejudice head on.
Yes.
And he says, prejudices of religion, race, or sect destroy the foundation of humanity. All the divisions in the world, hatred, war, and bloodshed, are caused by one or other of these prejudices.
It's a powerful statement.
It really is. He's basically saying that prejudice is at the root of most of the world's problems. And then he goes on to say, the remedy for prejudice is education. If the soul is educated, these evils will vanish, for the root of prejudice is ignorance.
So it's a call to action.
It is.
To really look at our own prejudices, challenge the systems that perpetuate them, and actively work towards understanding and unity.
So it's not enough to just say, oh, I'm not prejudiced.
No.
We have to actively work to dismantle prejudice, both within ourselves and in the world around us.
It's a continuous process.
It is a continuous process of self-reflection, education, and really conscious action.
Yes, and the earlier we start this process, the better.
Right.
Can you imagine if we instilled these values in children from a young age? Teaching them to see the beauty in diversity.
Wow.
To embrace differences and to challenge prejudice wherever they see it.
That would be a game changer.
It would.
Can you imagine a world where kids grow up without inheriting the prejudices of previous generations?
I know, it's hard to even imagine.
It's hard to imagine.
But that's the kind of world that we're striving for, right? A world where prejudice is a relic of the past.
Absolutely. And it's not some far-off utopia either. We have the tools to start building it right now.
We do. We absolutely do.
So we've explored the destructive power of prejudice and the important role that education plays in dismantling it. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about the positive.
Okay.
What does a world without prejudice actually look like?
It's a world where peace is not just an idea.
Yeah.
It's a reality where people are collaborating instead of competing.
Okay.
And where differences are celebrated, not feared.
I love that.
Can you imagine a global society where resources are shared equitably, where everyone feels valued, and where each person can contribute their own unique talents to make humanity better?
It's a world brimming with possibilities.
It is.
And it's not some unreachable dream.
It's not.
We can actually start building it right now.
Absolutely.
And Baha'u'llah, he offers this really beautiful reminder of where we can begin.
What's that?
He says, close your eyes to racial differences and welcome all with the light of oneness.
Such powerful words.
It really is. It's about looking beyond just the surface, recognizing that spark of shared humanity within every person, and embracing each other with open arms.
It is. And it reminds us that the power to create a more just and unified world is within each of us.
And that's where we'll pick up after a quick moment to reflect.
Oh.
When we come back, we'll dive into how we can take these inspiring principles and actually put them into action in our daily lives.
Sounds great.
Stay with us.
You know, when I think about all those quotes about education,
Yeah.
it makes me realize that we talk about eliminating prejudice like it's this huge goal for society.
Right.
But really, it starts with each of us looking inward.
Absolutely. It's so easy to just point fingers and say, oh, look at all the prejudice out there.
Right.
But you can't change the world until you change yourself.
Exactly.
So how do we actually start tackling those biases that we might not even realize we have?
Well, I think the first step is self-awareness.
Okay.
It's about really looking at your own beliefs and assumptions and asking yourself, where did these come from? And are they based on facts? Or are they just biases that I've picked up along the way? Because we've all been exposed to stereotypes and prejudices throughout our lives.
Yeah, for sure.
It's part of the human experience.
Right.
But the key is to recognize them and actively challenge them.
It's like those optical illusions where you see one thing and then someone points out a different perspective and suddenly you see a whole new image.
Exactly.
It's the same with prejudice.
Yeah.
We need to shift our perspective to see the full picture.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's about questioning your assumptions and being open to having your beliefs challenged.
Right.
And I know that can be uncomfortable sometimes,
Oh, yeah.
but it's so important for growth. It's like if you're working out and it doesn't feel challenging, are you really getting stronger?
I like that. Okay, so let's say we've identified some of our biases.
Okay.
What's next? How do we actually start dismantling them?
Well, remember how we were talking about the power of education?
Yeah.
That's where we turn next. But it's not just about passively absorbing information.
Okay.
It's about actively seeking out diverse perspectives and experiences.
So, like, what does that look like practically?
Well, you could read books by authors from different backgrounds, or watch documentaries that challenge your worldview. Have conversations with people whose life experiences are different from your own.
So it's like building a more diverse mental library.
I love that analogy. The more exposure we have to different cultures, ideas, and perspectives, the less likely we are to just fall into those traps of stereotypes and prejudice.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it's also about cultivating empathy.
Empathy, that's a big one. How do we go beyond just acknowledging that someone is different to actually understanding and connecting with their experience?
It's about really putting yourself in someone else's shoes trying to see the world through their eyes and feeling what they feel.
Yeah.
It's about listening with an open heart, suspending judgment, and letting yourself be moved by their stories. Sometimes a single powerful story can do more to dismantle prejudice than 1,000 arguments.
I think that's so true. Stories have a way of cutting through the noise and connecting us on a human level.
Exactly.
They help us see each other, not as just categories, but as individuals with hopes and dreams and struggles, just like our own.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that empathy doesn't mean you have to condone or agree with someone's actions or beliefs. It's about understanding where they're coming from, even if you disagree with them.
So we've talked about self-reflection,
Yes.
education, and empathy.
Yeah.
And these are all really powerful tools for individual transformation.
They are.
But how do we translate those into action on a bigger scale?
Right.
How do we create a ripple effect that goes beyond just ourselves and helps to eliminate prejudice in our communities and institutions?
That's where creating spaces for dialogue and understanding comes in.
Okay.
We need to have those tough conversations about race, religion, gender, all the things that divide us. But we need to do it in a way that's respectful, open-minded, and focused on finding common ground.
You know, I've heard the term brave spaces used to describe environments where people feel safe to share their experiences, even if they're painful or controversial.
I like that.
It's about creating a culture of vulnerability and mutual respect.
I love that.
Yeah.
It takes courage to step outside our comfort zones and engage in these conversations.
Absolutely.
Especially when they touch on sensitive topics.
Exactly.
But that's where real growth happens.
Yeah.
That's where we start to break down barriers and build bridges of understanding.
And it's not just about talking, right?
Right.
It's also about taking action.
Yes.
To dismantle systems of oppression and discrimination wherever we see them.
Absolutely.
Whether it's challenging a discriminatory policy, advocating for social justice,
Yes.
or even just speaking up when you witness prejudice in your daily life. We all have a role to play in creating a more just and equitable society.
We absolutely do.
Yeah.
We can't be passive bystanders. Silence in the face of injustice is complicity. Each of us has a responsibility to use our voices and our actions to create positive change.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that this is a journey,
Yes.
not a destination.
Exactly.
It's like tending a garden. You have to constantly nurture the good weed out the bad and be vigilant in protecting it from harmful influences. Eliminating prejudice is an ongoing process, not a one-time fix.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that even small actions can have a big impact.
Right.
Just like a single seed can grow into a mighty tree, a single act of kindness or understanding can have a ripple effect that spreads far and wide.
So as we shift our focus from the individual to the collective,
Yeah.
let's talk about those small actions that can create a more just and unified world.
Okay.
What are some practical steps that we can all take in our everyday lives to make a difference?
It could be something as simple as reaching out to someone from a different background, striking up a conversation and getting to know them as a person, or challenging a prejudiced remark you hear, even if it feels uncomfortable.
Okay.
Or maybe it's taking the time to educate yourself about different cultures and perspectives. Every act of unity, no matter how small, contributes to creating a more just and peaceful world.
It's about being mindful of our words and actions. Yes.
Challenging our own biases and actively looking for opportunities to connect with people who are different from us.
Absolutely.
And remembering that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
We're all citizens of this one planet, sharing the same hopes and dreams for a better future.
Beautifully said. And with that in mind, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've discussed today.
Okay.
We've explored the powerful teachings of the Bahá'í Faith. We've talked about the complex issue of prejudice.
Yeah.
And we've imagined a world where unity and understanding are the norm.
I love that.
But the most important part is what comes next. When we come back, we'll leave you with a final, thought-provoking question to consider as you continue to explore this important topic.
Right, sounds good.
Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. As we come to the end of our exploration of eliminating prejudice through the teachings of the Baha'i Faith, I'm really struck by how much these ideas resonate with this deep longing for a more unified and peaceful world.
Me too. It's something I think we all share. Yeah, and it's been such an inspiring journey, hasn't it?
It really has.
We've explored some really powerful concepts,
Yeah.
practical tools, and a really hopeful vision for the future.
But now comes the most important part, putting all of these insights into action.
Exactly, and we've covered so much ground,
Yes.
from understanding what causes prejudice to envisioning a world without it. But as we wrap up, I want to bring it back to you, the listener.
Because ultimately, change starts with each of us.
That's right. The Baha'i writings emphasize that prejudice is learned,
Right.
which means we can unlearn it.
It gives me hope.
It does. And so, as we close out this episode, I want to leave you with this question.
Okay.
What can you unlearn today to help build a more unified world?
What a great question.
What could it be?
I think it could be a subtle bias you've been holding on to,
Yeah.
or a stereotype you've accepted without really questioning it,
Okay.
or maybe even a fear of engaging with people who are different from you.
Think about those everyday moments where you might encounter prejudice, like in a conversation, a news story, or even just in your own thoughts. What can you do differently in those moments?
Maybe challenge a prejudice comment you hear,
Right.
reach out to someone from a different background, or
Yeah.
just take the time to really listen to and understand someone else's perspective.
Remember those small acts of unity we talked about?
And I do.
This is where they come in.
They really do.
Every time you choose understanding over judgment, connection over division,
Yeah.
you're helping to create a more just and peaceful world.
It's true. And remember that beautiful image of welcoming everyone with the light of oneness.
Oh, yeah.
Let that be your guiding principle as you navigate the complexities of our diverse world.
It's been such a privilege diving deep into these powerful teachings with you.
I agree.
And we hope you found this exploration as thought-provoking and inspiring as we have.
Me too.
So until next time, keep seeking, keep learning, and keep building those bridges of understanding